Hello, everyone, and welcome to Loops. I'm Kevin Forsythe, and on this podcast, we discuss God's Word, His church, and everyday life, always asking the question, how does this loop back into our life and God's kingdom? Our mission here at Loops is to empower others in their walk with God through kingdom-minded discussion. Now, this week, we hear from a few mothers that discuss the topic of motherhood. During this mom chat, they dive into daily routines, personal challenges, coping mechanisms, and how ultimately motherhood is a ministry. Jovona Forsythe and Faith Forsythe welcome Danielle Underwood, a former NICU nurse, and Kelsey Forsythe, a stay-at-home mom who recently returned to work in childcare. If you have little ones, our hope is that you will benefit from and be encouraged by this episode. Welcome to Loops.
Excited. Welcome to Loops. I'm so excited. Faith, we're so excited that you guys are here. I think this is our third one that we've been able to do on motherhood, which, if we're being honest, I feel like motherhood is the roughest hood to be a part of. So it's very much a needed conversation and topic. So thank you both for coming in and being a part of that. So let's talk about pregnancy. Let's start there. When did you, when you were pregnant, were you surprised? Was it, tell us about that journey. We'll start there.
So with me and Bryant had been trying for about 3 months. And it was the day I found out I was 4 weeks pregnant. And I actually had 3 dreams that night of taking a pregnancy test and it being positive. Oh, wow. Oh. And I woke up and I was like, that's different. I'm going to go take a test. And we were supposed to go on vacation with my family that day. And Bryant was still asleep. And I went in there and I took it and it was positive. And I was freaking out. And I was like, oh, no. I really wanted to tell him in a cute way, but I can't keep this to myself all weekend,
That's relatable. Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go get you coffee. And I was looking around. And I was like, okay, I'll just say I forgot to give him a Christmas present. So I wrote a little note, put it in there and showed it to him. And he was super excited. He's like, are you really pregnant? I was like, Really? Because we thought it was going to take us a while to get pregnant. Because my mom, it took her, I think, about 3 years.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And I have the same thing she has. Her uterus is tilted a certain way. And so they had told me it might take me a little while. And it did not. So I guess it was
God.
Praise God, yeah. So it was a little bit of a shock of how fast. But we were trying and we were really excited. So that was
how
nice.
long had you guys been married?
2 years.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good time. Good
Yes.
time.
Yes.
That was how long we were trying to wait, but instead it was 2 months. So that was definitely a surprise for us. But
so you were 2 months from I remember this. And so tell us the emotions that you went through, because I think yours was more of a shock, right?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I remember on Christmas Day, we thought it was a little bit weird that Pepper, who is a very feisty puppy, hated everybody, but she loved me on Christmas Day. Yes. So I was like, that's kind of weird. Didn't really think anything of it. The next day at work, I remember being really, really nauseous. And I was like, that's weird. Looked at the calendar, started getting a little suspicious. So I took a pregnancy test that night and I started crying when I saw the positive. Obviously, it's fine. We were excited. But I remember sobbing because I was like, I cannot believe we got pregnant this fast. Totally unplanned. We had planned on waiting 2 years. And it was just
your honeymoon
happen.
Suitcase wasn't even unpacked.
No. It was, yeah. And I remember Nick just being so excited. And he was like, this is great. And I'm like, we just got married. Yeah. This is interesting. Yeah. And then when I went to tell I literally was like, I have to go talk to my mom right now. And I remember going over to their house to tell her, and she just like fell on the floor laughing. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I'm sitting there holding the test, just like crying because I'm like, I cannot believe this. And she thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Oh,
Thanks, Mom.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
thanks, Mom, for the support.
Yeah. So, yeah, Amy was definitely a surprise. With Ava, it was different because we were trying for her. But it was still very, like, I didn't do, like, a cute, like, announcement for either one of them.
Yeah.
So I do kind of wish we would have done that, but it is what it is.
In the moment, like you said, it's very hard.
Yes.
Yes.
You just want to tell
I
them
feel like-
immediately.
Faith, you probably got to do a cute announcement.
Absolutely not.
No?
I could not hold in secrets from him. Like, you get excited.
Yes.
Even with like Christmas and stuff, you buy him a gift early. You want to
Yeah.
give it to him early.
Yes.
Like, I brought you your Christmas gift already here. Like, open it. And it's like November 2nd.
Yeah.
But
Okay, yeah. What's really cool is we're all moms. So this is a mom chat. That's what we're calling it, right? So you have, Danielle, you have one baby.
Yes.
You have two. You have two. Faith has two. And I have one and pregnant with one. So if I sound out of breath, that's why. No, so mom chat. And motherhood is rough from the very start. Like that first trimester is rough. So that gives you an expectation of what it's going to be the best, the absolute best that you could ever ask for, but rough. So
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, so good start. You are pregnant, you go through pregnancy, all of those emotions, and you finally have baby, right? You're at the hospital. How does that feel? Like, walk us through those emotions.
So when I had Emmy, it was a lot. I was induced, and it took like 4 days for the induction process to work. And then we had to stay an additional 2 days because she was jaundiced. So it was a very tiring, exhausting process, and I was ready to go. But I remember getting out to the car and like almost having a panic attack because I, for some reason, was so worried that somebody was going to jump in the car and drive off with me and Emmy in the backseat. And I remember yelling at Nick, like, get in the car, we have to go. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just freaking out. And I was just so panicked and like shaking. And by the time we got home, I'd calmed down a little bit, but I was still like shaking a little bit. And I was like, what is wrong with me? But it's all those hormones. And I mean, you just had a baby. You got to give yourself some grace.
Oh, absolutely.
So with her, it was interesting. After that, it got a little bit easier. With Ava, I was so ready to go home because I was ready to get back to Emmy, and I was ready for Emmy to meet Ava. And Ava was a lot of a quicker process. So we were out of the hospital in like 2 days, I think. But still, it's overwhelming, obviously. Like you just, especially with your first, you have a baby, and then they're just like, okay, go. You're like, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah,
What do I do? And it's just, you're so new, and you're trying to figure out how to be a mom, and they're so new to the world and tiny and relying on you for everything. So it's a lot,
Yeah,
but
that
it's
part.
the best thing
Here
ever.
you go.
Yeah. There you go.
Go be a mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
No instruction manual.
Yes.
Oh, that's terrifying.
But yeah.
It is. And well, with that too, because I had a little, like, before I had her, I had this confidence, like, I'm a NICU nurse. I know exactly how to take care of her. Like, which partly did help. And then the other part, made me overthink and made me analyze a lot of things. And then you become a mom and you realize, I'm not a nurse right now. I'm a mom. Like, and you have mom worries and mom things. And I remember being in the hospital and I was really excited to go home. And I actually really want to go home and take a shower. Like, I remember that was like what was on my mind. They didn't let me take a shower. They didn't give her a bath. And I was like, yeah, they didn't let us know. I was like, I want to get her home. I want to get her clean. I want to get me clean. And so I was really excited. And then on the other hand, I was nervous too because I was breastfeeding, and I called the lactation specialist every single time. And I was like, oh, you're not coming home with me? Like every single time I had her, and I was like, it's going to be okay. Like, so I remember feeling nervous about that, about her, eating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of pressure.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. I remember just sobbing, thinking, can you just please come home
Yes.
with me?
Yeah.
Before we started recording, we talked about you you went into preterm labor.
Yes, I went to preterm labor.
Let's touch on that
Yes.
really quick.
So I went to preterm labor at 30 weeks. I was in the hospital for about 4 days. What had happened, I was at work and I kept getting pains and I just thought my scrubs are really tight, like, or something, I pulled something, and I had a doctor's appointment the next day. I went and I told my doctor, hey, I'm having pains on and off. I don't know if they're contractions or what it is, or if I pulled something, because I didn't know what a contraction felt like, so I wasn't sure. And so they hooked me with a machine. Me and Brian are sitting there talking, laughing. And the doctor walks in and says, I'm sending you over to the hospital. And I was like, why? And she's like, you're contracting every 3 minutes.
Ooh.
So they sent me in, and I got there, and I was in triage, and they tried to give me a shot to make the contraction stop. And it worked for 20 minutes, and then they picked back up every 3 minutes.
Wow.
And so they hooked me on magnesium, gave me a bunch of steroid shots just in case she came early. Thank you, Jesus. She didn't. She stayed in.
Yeah.
It worked.
Till when? 38 weeks?
And yes,
Oh, yeah.
till 38 weeks. Till 38 weeks.
Good.
And then, so I remember that experience made me really scared
Yeah.
because I knew, being a NICU nurse, like, partly it was really scary because I knew exactly what was going to happen, but comforting because I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was preparing myself. And I told Bryant, I was like, if she comes, she will be in an isolate. She will be on oxygen. She will be on, all these things in IV. Like, you, like, prepare yourself.
Yeah.
But everything was good. She
That's good.
kept her in.
Yeah.
Kept her in. And that made I remember the last part of my pregnancy, like, I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to stay at home. I was really, really nervous. I was nervous about even Bryant going somewhere. I got really anxious. I remember, like, being like, I feel like something's going to happen to you. You're going to go somewhere. Something's going to happen. And it was tough.
Yeah.
That was pretty tough for me. And then at 37 weeks, I was like, okay, she can come. Like, I started walking, and my water broke. Actually, I was sleeping and I woke up.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I woke up. It was about 6:48 in the morning. And I woke up and I was like, did I have an accident? And so I stood up and I woke up Brian. I said, I think my water broke.
Oh,
And he sits up and he's like, what? And he's like, do I have time to, like, get ready? And I said, well, I'm not really contracting. So yeah, I think you're okay. You can take a shower and we can get her back together. And then I was in labor for 22 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Because they had to put me on Pitocin right when I went in the hospital because there was a risk for infection because after your water breaks. So, I
hate that stuff.
I do too. If I would have known, like, the feeling, I would have said, let me try to labor on my own for a little bit and then give me the Pitocin. But it worked out. She came. She was healthy. So it was really good. It was really nice. And we had a really good experience when she came. Like, me and him both got to do, like, skin to skin with her. I got to do skin to skin for an hour.
That's
and
awesome.
he got to do it for an hour too before they even weighed her or anything. It was really nice.
Good.
So
That's awesome.
Oh.
yeah.
I love bird stories.
Yeah.
I know. I remember my sister's water broke and she called me and I went over there and I walked in and she was eating a corn dog.
Oh, my
And I was
goodness.
like, okay. But she was contracting too, but she's like, I'm eating now because they won't let me eat.
It's true.
I wish I would have ate. Because I wasn't sure because it wasn't like a bunch. I was like, maybe just it's leaking or something. So I ate a bowl of cereal and I wish I would have ate something more because it was like 22 hours.
I
And
feel like you need to tell your story now. With the
I want to
oatmeal.
hear.
Oh my goodness. This girl.
Yeah, when I had ended up having a C-section, but I went to the doctor and I had, like, really high blood pressure. So they were like, for sure, like, we need to send you to the hospital. I have 2 uteruses. So I immediately, like, once I got closer to my due date, they pretty much confirmed, like, you're not going to be able to labor. So we're going to have to do a C-section. And I was like, I'll get a second opinion.
In denial.
You're like, no, actually, I can do this.
So I had 4 doctors tell me I had to have a C-section.
And she
that's
still
all?
was arguing.
That's all, JoJo. 4.
Just 4.
But I remember I went home and I didn't have anything. I don't know why. I just lived my life, careless, I guess. I'm not the most planning
You're
person.
just not concerned. You're
And
just
I'm
not bothered.
like,
You're like, gonna work
supposed
out.
to go to the hospital, and all I could think is I really want oatmeal and strawberries.
Mhm.
So I had no snack, and this was during COVID, by the way.
Mhm.
So we were told you cannot leave your room. So you need to bring everything with you. You can't even leave to go get your car seat. Like everything has to come up in the room with you. So you would have thought I would have been way more planned out. But last minute, I'm like, okay, so I'll grab this, I'll grab that. And Kelsey's like, do you have snacks? I'm like, no. Did you go get me snacks?
No, I remember writing a list though. I remember Matthew like running. We were living with you guys at the time. I remember Matthew like running around the house like, what do I need? What do I need? And I'm sitting there just writing a list of snacks. Okay, what do you want?
Yeah.
And Matthew would holler out a snack and I'd write it down. And then I think he like ran to the store super fast and I helped you like get your stuff together.
I just
and
ate my oatmeal
Eating her
with
oatmeal?
strawberries.
And it was probably the
And
best
then-
bowl
The
ever.
best bowl of oatmeal we've ever had.
But then what happens when you get to the hospital?
Do
you remember?
No, I don't. I blocked it out.
She gets to the hospital and they had to, the doctor asked her if she'd eaten. And she was like, oh, yeah, I ate a bowl of oatmeal. So then she had to wait to get her C-section because she ate. So had she not eaten, we would have met Mia sooner. Or you would have met me sooner.
And I was like, man. But that was the best bowl of oatmeal
Oatmeal
I
you've
bet.
ever had.
So it's terrible. I'm like the worst planner, but I'm like, oh, and then like, what do you put in the diaper bag? Like, and I'm like trying to like look at all these mommy bloggers, and I think and then when I had her, so talking about emotions,
Oh, yeah.
I had her and we're like, it's time to go home. Great. Like, bye. See you later. And I'm like, I didn't really bring a cute outfit. Like all these people are like take super cute Instagram photos and stuff. I literally have a picture. Well, also she was 9'3", by the way. So she was a big baby. So it was a newborn sleeper with no feet and literally like it's up to her knees. And I'm like, just way too small for her. And I was like, okay, that's kind of sad. Like, and then I remember crying, like, I'm a terrible mom.
Just swaddle her. No one would have
Swaddle,
known.
they
Yeah,
wouldn't
no one
know.
knows.
That's
okay.
her cute newborn pictures. So that brings us into the exhaustion, right? When you go home, that first night.
It was
rough.
Can we all agree?
Yes. Because I was used to leaving the babies. Like I took care of babies all day. Bye-bye. Like and go.
Yeah.
And that like you never know how much you can function on so much little sleep
Yes.
until you have a
Yeah.
baby. Mm-hmm.
Well, Summer was in the NICU.
Yeah, she was. So we were there
Oh,
for 5 days.
Wow.
So
That's right.
you know, the whole showering situation, just everything. It was awful being there 5 days. She had water in her lungs when she was born. And then, so she was in the NICU for 3 or 4 of those nights. And then the last, we get ready to go, jaundice. So then we're there again.
Did they keep you while they kept her? Or
Yes.
did they send discharge you? They kept you.
Actually, they were supposed to discharge us, and they really technically did. But she said, we have an available room if you want to stay here. And I was
nice.
like,
Nice.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
So she was under the lamp. You know, they brought like this little bed. She had the lamp on, and then they had these little like paper goggle
Yes.
things on.
Amy had those.
Yes.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yes.
It's heartbreaking.
All you
to
see
see
They're
is
the
their
worst.
little lips.
Yep.
Like you can't even see their whole face.
Yep. And
Yeah.
she's like just in this little diaper, and she's so tiny. I mean, she doesn't, feel tiny.
Yeah.
As a mom, she's not tiny, but to everybody else, she's so tiny. And she's under the lamp, and she kept moving and ripping the goggles off. So me and Kevin took shifts. This is like our thing. I don't know why we do this to ourselves, but took shifts and held the goggles on and put our hand on her chest so she felt like that comfort,
Yeah.
soothing of somebody being there the entire night. So it was like he would do 2 hours while I slept. I would do 2 hours, and we just did that. So we were like super exhausted by the time we went home. And not to mention, like the nurses coming in and checking,
Yeah.
turning on the fluorescent lights, like, oh, did you take your pill? Did you, pushing on you and stuff. And it's like, you really do not sleep. And then going home,
Yeah.
you still don't sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sleeping. And my second baby is 8 months today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She does not sleep through the night, by the way. But,
Bless
Praying
your
for you.
heart.
yeah. So
So exhaustion.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you get home that first night. How did you make it through?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember sleeping. I
Lots of
remember just checking on her, watching her breathe like the whole night,
Mhm.
just constantly. Or if I did kind of fall asleep, I look at her again. Just, are you okay? Like it just, I don't know how I got through it.
Yeah.
You just do it. You just do. I feel like God gives you the strength, and
absolutely.
He gives you the strength, and you get through it, and just know like it's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's gonna pass. Like
Mhm.
you will sleep someday. I haven't had that yet, but
We're still waiting on that?
I'm still waiting on the day to sleep, but I mean it's better than before.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking, I kind of like to do this a little bit. I mean, this is only the third time, but I do like to ask, when you have a pregnant mama, what's the advice that you would give her for that, like those first few days, like of birthing and then getting home and just trying to survive? Like, what advice could you give a new mom?
Honestly, just give yourself grace, and it's gonna be okay. You may not feel like that at the time, but it's a phase. And one day, probably in the next few years, maybe longer, you'll look back and you're like, wow, I did that. I survived that. And it's amazing. Like, it's very, very hard, but it's so amazing. So you can do it. Like, we were made for this.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's what we were made for.
We were.
And you can do it.
And it's so rewarding.
It is.
It's very rewarding.
I
so
agree.
grace.
Yes.
Mhm.
Word of the day,
Yes.
grace.
Yeah.
Grace.
Go easy on yourself.
Mhm.
That's my 2 cents.
So, talking about exhaustion and moving kind of towards the parenting aspect. How old are your kids again, Danielle? How old is your
She
baby?
is almost 18 months. She'll be 18 months on the 4th of
Okay.
March. So yeah.
And
love
then
that
you
age.
have
A 4-year-old who's going to be 5 in August.
kindergarten
Starting kindergarten in August. I'm not ready. And then a 2-year-old.
and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
This is a cool dynamic episode because Danielle, you were a full-time working individual and you quit the NICU to be a stay-at-home mom. What led to that decision?
So when me and Brian got married, we were talking about kids, and we had both said that I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. It was just always something I wanted to do. And we talked about that, and we're willing to make those sacrifices. We talked about, okay, just it's hard, but it's so rewarding. And sometimes it's kind of like, are we even doing this? But God, we know God always provides for us. He always is there for us. He's going to take care of us. So Brian's always been very supportive, and he's just do whatever he needs to do so I can stay home with her. And it was just very important for both of us to be able to have that experience and stay home with her and just watch her through all her little milestones. And that was so important to me. I said, I don't want to miss this. Like, this I would rather struggle for, a few years and be able to stay with her. And we were so blessed that we are able to do that. And
That's awesome.
I'm very blessed to have a very good husband too.
Amen. Amen.
That definitely.
So you knew that was a
Yes.
goal. Okay.
That was a goal. So
nice.
when we got pregnant, I was like,
Can I quit now?
Can I quit now? Yeah, exactly. But I was like, no, I'm gonna work through it. And I felt really bad. I didn't tell my work until a week before, like that week my maternity leave was up. I was like,
So they thought you were going to go back to work after you had the baby?
well, I never said I was going back, but
okay.
I just wasn't like,
If
hey.
they assume.
No, I did that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And
I did it.
And I was like, hey, and I remember I called my manager and I said, hey, Eva. I was like, I'm so sorry. And I said, I'm not going to come back. I'm going to stay home with her for a little bit. And she was so sweet. She was so understanding. She was like, I totally understand. Like, that's very important. I feel like us all working in the NICU, we understand. You want to be home with your baby. And
Yeah.
So it was very, very blessed.
Good.
Yes.
So you kind of knew
Mm-hmm.
pre-plan. You
Yes.
guys talked about that.
Yes.
What about you, Kelsey?
I remember us talking about kids. I just don't remember if we ever discussed the whole stay-at-home thing. I was working at a doctor's office when I found out I was pregnant. And we were newly married, so there was a lot to figure out. But through my pregnancy, it was kind of just like weighing our options, and childcare is extremely expensive. And we didn't have any family to watch her, and it didn't make sense to pay for childcare. Like my checks would just be going to childcare. So it was like, why am I going to work just to pay for childcare? It didn't make sense. So that's why I decided to stay home. And it was the kind of same, like you just have to trust that everything's going to be fine and believe that God's going to provide. And he did, and it was perfect. We lived with family for the first 15 months of her life. We moved in with my parents first, which was amazing for the newborn phase. Shout out to my mom and dad. They were great. And that was just a special experience to be able to kind of go through the newborn phase and having my mom there. But yeah, so that's why I quit my job originally. And then I was home for 3 years.
And then you decided to go back to work.
Yes.
What led to that decision?
So there was a lot that went into the decision. I feel like it's kind of a long story.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So before I had gotten married, I worked at our church daycare, and I left there to go work in the medical field. And my actual original goal was to be a nurse. Just never got there. I was just a medical assistant. Loved it. But again, having a kid just kind of like threw all those plans off. But the class I worked in when I worked at the daycare was the infant class. And it was always my favorite. I love the babies. So I always said that if I were to ever go back to the daycare, it would have to be for the infant class. I wouldn't go back for any other because the babies was where my heart was at. So I had actually reached out to the director when Emmy was, I think she'd just maybe turned 3 or maybe it was a little after, just giving her a heads up like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about putting Emmy in for pre-K, just part-time. And she was like, okay, well, I'll get back to you. So we'd already kind of been going back and forth about Emmy starting pre-K. Well, then she calls me one day and she's like, hey, so I actually have this position available in the infant class. And I was like, oh, okay. She's giving me all the details about it and how it would work, like with the kids. I would obviously take them with me, and they would be in their, classes for their age group. And I got off the phone and was like, I don't know, like maybe I should consider it. And I was also, and this is where we're going to get deep. Sorry if I get emotional.
I was going to say,
Sorry.
where were you at that time?
So I dealt with a lot of postpartum anxiety and depression after having Ava. I said I was not going to cry. If I cry, so sorry.
It's okay.
I struggled really bad after having Ava, and it's really, I feel like it's such a long, like, how do I even, we may need to cut this out, but when I realized I was struggling after having Ava, she was literally like 2 or 3 weeks old. And I remember being at my mom's house. We were all, like all of my siblings, we were all going over there with the kids to hang out. And I just remember dreading it all day. And I was like, why am I dreading this? Like, I normally love hanging out with my family. And I remember being there, and my sister-in-law was, I think, holding Ava. And I was sitting there just feeling like so overwhelmed and just like, I don't want to be here right now. Like, I just want to be home with my kids, and I don't want to be out like socializing. And it was my family. So I was like, why am I feeling this way? It was really weird. And I remember like locking eyes with my mom, and she was like, are you okay? And I don't know if like my face looked weird or why she would ask me, but she was like, are you okay? And I was like, no.
Or
and
because moms.
Because
Yes,
moms know.
no.
They
know.
really do.
Read us.
They do.
Yes.
And I just remember like bursting into tears, and I had to like go to a different room, and I was just like, why? Like, I just knew something was going on. So from there, it just kind of got worse. I just like was not looking forward to like doing anything. I didn't want to do anything. I was constantly worried about Ava and Emmy, like making sure I was paying enough attention to Emmy, and I didn't want her to feel left out because of the new baby. And there was just a lot going on. I was sad all the time for no reason. And I just remember there were so many times, I'm not going to cry. There were so many times I would just be sitting in the rocking chair with Ava just crying. And I couldn't figure out why. Sorry. It's okay.
Raw and real.
And I did not bring tissue boxes, and I told myself I would.
And I remember like there would be times Nick would come in and he'd be like, "What do you need? Like, what can I do?" And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know what I need. I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's wrong. I feel like I'm going crazy. And I actually found out later that one of those nights that I was having a really, really bad night, he actually texted my parents and was like, "Pray for her. She's really struggling." And I didn't even know he did that at the time. So when I found out later, I was like crying. My mom was telling me about it. I was like crying
More
over
tears.
again. More tears. Just nonstop tears. But yeah, I struggled really bad. And it just, some days were okay, some days were not. And I wanted to be home, but I started realizing that being home all the time was most likely the reason for all of those feelings. And it was like being home all the time. It's just, I don't know. It wasn't working for me anymore. But I also was like, I don't want to just go back to like working in the medical field because hours are a little bit weird. And so anyways, all that to say, I knew going back to the daycare would give me a little bit more freedom. I would be close to my kids. It was the age group that I wanted. I loved the babies. And being in, a Christian environment, I really loved that. And my kids, like, I just remember on their first day when we started, they were so excited and they did great and they've done great. They've thrived. They've made friends. Emmy loves going to school. And I felt like it really set her up for kindergarten, which is what I wanted. And she's going to be starting kindergarten soon. But even Ava, like she wasn't quite 2 when we started. And I remember like feeling guilty about that because I was like, man, I should have held out a little bit longer. But my kids deserve a happy mom. And if going back to work is what gave them that, I knew they were going to thrive. So there's a little bit of guilt there going back to work, but ultimately it's been great for us. I feel like I was going to say something else. I have to cut that out, but
No, you're fine. I was going to talk about guilt. Like, I feel like there's guilt on both sides. Like,
absolutely.
You feel guilty because you're working, right? But then, and I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but moms that stay home, you feel guilty because if you're working, would you have more income? If you were working, could you have this or could you be doing that? So it's like, it's important for all moms to know that no matter what route you take, there is guilt. Mom guilt is real.
Yes.
And you said it. Our kids, our babies deserve a happy mom.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
so at the end of the day, you have to do what is going to make you happy. And if you pray about it and you talk to God about it and you follow whatever it is that, you and God talk about, because sometimes I talk to God like we're just right here.
Yes.
So it's just important. I feel like no matter which route you go, there's going to be mom guilt.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's okay. Your kids deserve the happiest, healthiest version of you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I almost feel like that phone call, Kelsey, with that job offer was like God throwing you a lifeline. Like, this is, you got to do something. Yeah.
Well, and what's even crazier is that the reason why this position was available was because my sister-in-law was moving to Oregon.
Yes.
And I was taking her position, and they moved for, I wish I knew the exact time frame, but a few months, and then ended up coming back. So it was like, it definitely felt like a God thing on so many levels. But it, like, had she never reached out to me about that job, had my sister-in-law and brother never moved, like, none of the things would have worked out the way they did. And it was such a blessing for their family when they moved. Like, it was a God thing for that to happen. So it was a God thing for me to go back. And I believe that. And that it's helped the guilt a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I really chose to go back to work. But it really has been amazing.
Yeah. And so what, again, advice or encouragement can you give to new mamas about mom guilt? I know we said give yourself grace, and that is going to definitely be a part of that too. But how do we explain to new moms, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
You know that you're doing what's best for your child and for you.
Yes.
And because I struggle with that too, like thinking, okay, if I was working again, because I made a pretty good income, I'm like, I'm affecting us, especially on like hard weeks. I'm like, I'm affecting us. Like, if I don't go back, like, it's all on me. I'm not being a good mom by doing this. But you just have to realize, like, you are what season you're in and where you're at right now. And if you, like you said, you are doing good and you are happy, like, and your child sees that you're happy and are thriving, like, that's okay. And it's okay. And it's okay to want to go back to work. It's okay to want to stay home too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's I feel like, especially on social media nowadays, there's always so many opinions about, you know, like people being like, wow, I can't believe you're staying home, or wow, I can't believe you went back to work. It's just, it's
crazy.
You know.
Well, and also to add to that, what works for one family may not work for another.
Yes.
Right? So you can't look at somebody and like, oh, I should be doing that. Well, it might not work for you.
Exactly.
It might not work for your kids.
Exactly.
You know yourself. You know your kids the best. You know what works for you. So don't listen to anybody else.
And mom shaming, it's 2024. That's so outdated.
Why?
Yes.
Just stop.
Why?
Just stop. Especially from a fellow mother.
Yeah.
You know, like,
you should be supportive and uplifting
absolutely.
and praying for one another and just really being there. And I feel like when you get with other moms and you talk about your struggles and you talk about your things, it helps build you up. You're like, okay, so I'm not the only one. You're going through that too.
Yeah, I'm not crazy.
I'm not
You're crazy too. So
If you're crazy, then I'm crazy. We're all crazy.
We're all crazy. It's the best crazy that I would never trade for anything.
Exactly.
Agreed.
And I felt like for me too, like working in the NICU, I would come home and I would be very, like, things would happen. I would be very upset. I would be very, you know, hard day struggle. And I told Brent, like, I don't want to come home and bring that to my child. I was like, I don't want to mix that with my postpartum hormones and all these things. I'm like, I feel like, and I just always knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that was so important.
Yeah.
So I knew that would be the happiest version of myself, of me. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Do you
I love
find,
her.
though, being a stay-at-home mom, do you find you miss the social interactions on a daily basis too?
I do miss the social interactions. I miss, because people at work, even if you didn't go hang out after work, you're there and you're talking with them, you're talking about your day, and then all of a sudden you're at home alone with your baby, just like rocking in the rocking chair, doing things, and it's just every day the same thing, just doing this and this, and then it gets really lonely. I remember feeling very lonely, very just isolated, or, you know, and you don't talk to people like you used to. So I feel like what helped with that a lot was like seeing my mom, calling my mom, or calling a friend, or being another mom who's going through the same season or the same thing. Like, hey, like, let's go bring your kids and grab a coffee, or just go to the park or go for a walk or something. And I feel like that really helps with that. And prayer, praying.
Yes.
Yes. He helps a lot. And I remember one time I was sitting there and I was looking at Adeline on her monitor, and I was looking at her and I'm like, God's like the way I love her, like, God loves us 1,000 times more. And when she's crying out and she needs me, I'm going to go straight to her. And God's exactly the same way. If you cry out for him and you reach for him, he's going to come. He's right there waiting. Even if you don't know that he's watching you, you don't know that he's right there. He's right there, and he's waiting for you to stretch your arms out and saying, God, I need you. I need your help. And he's there. He's listening, and he will come and pick you up and tell you everything's okay. And so yeah. So that just know that he's always there, even when you feel alone.
Yes.
You're not alone.
Amen.
So
Yes. So if you see stay-at-home moms in public, start a conversation with them.
Yes,
They need
they
it. Okay.
need it. They need it. They will love to talk to you. After me and Natalie, we cut up all day. It's a one-way conversation, but I talk all day with her. But
I need to talk to an adult now.
Yes, I need to talk to an adult. Or yes.
Because Faith, you are a stay-at-home mom too, right? So what is something advice that you would give as well?
I would just say that these really are the good old days. And it's so cliche to say, one day we're going to look back and we're going to miss these days. It doesn't feel like that right now because there's someone constantly like, I have a shadow 24/7.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, not
Two
even
shadows.
yes, but not even to get into like detail, but you can't do anything alone.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Not a single
Nothing.
thing.
Zero.
Nothing. You have no privacy at all.
No.
Everything's out there. And just, just realizing that you are their world and that not that they're an empty slate necessarily, but they are, and they're learning from you. Today, I was getting a little bit irritated at Summer because she was pecking at me, quite literally pecking at me, and I'm trying to cook and clean and doing this stuff. And Kevin can hear me getting a little frustrated with her, and he called her aside and he said, look, let's leave mommy alone. Let's not interrupt her. So a couple minutes later, she comes into me and she taps me and she's like, oh God. She's all, mommy, I'm so sorry for interrupting you.
Oh.
Okay.
Cue the tears for everybody.
It just,
Oh.
it breaks you because it's like, wow, she's watching me, us using these big words and she wants to be just like us and like have more patience.
Yeah.
And with yourself too.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's okay to get frustrated because anybody would get frustrated with, someone's pulling on your hair and this and that. But also, like, they're watching 24/7. They're watching you. And just to take that as an opportunity, like, I just want to lead her to God. Like, I just want her to be the best that I can possibly portray in front of her. And, we fail. We do. We fail.
Absolutely.
But, so just have patience and reach out to other moms because a lot of them are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's less lonely that way.
Yeah.
And then when you see other moms struggling and not suffering, but struggling, and they're like trying to juggle kids and this and that, it's a comfort in that because you're like, I'm not alone. I really am not. We're all on this journey and we are really in the thick of it
Yeah.
together.
Yes.
A sweet lady told me, motherhood is your most important ministry right now, and just serve God
Yeah.
and lead them and be that, but it is rough.
Yeah.
Okay, so motherhood is the ministry. So let's talk about those like major changes, right? that we're like trying to figure out. Like we talked about, you can't do anything by yourself or whatever, right? How do you cope with that? Like, how do you just figure it out? Because my husband is out of town this week, and every time he leaves, I have a deep sense of love and respect for like single moms and single dads, because I'm like, how do they do it?
Yeah.
So how do you cope with changes, like those major adjustments?
Do your best.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're still figuring that one out.
I'm still figuring it out. Or if I find myself getting like, okay, she's clinging to me, it's getting frustrated. I'm like, okay, let's play something. Or like I try to make a game out of something, or what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, like let's, make this fun. Or I have to remind myself, this phase or whatever, it's not going to last forever. She's not going to be on top of me constantly, because she's very clingy. She likes me to hold her. Lately, it's been, since she's been walking, she's a lot better. She likes to go play, but she'll play around me, which is fine. That's been nice.
Yeah.
But before, I remember I couldn't do anything. She wanted me to hold her, so I had to learn how to cook with one hand. I had to do laundry with one hand, and just reminding myself, okay, this is just a phase. And then you're gonna miss this. You're going. I read this thing the other day. It said, I wish there was toys all over my house. I wish they would just lay on top of me. I wish I could just hold my baby.
Yeah.
And I was like, so
cute tears again.
So I'm like reminding myself, it's okay. Like this is the season I'm in, and I need to tell myself, enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Have fun with it. And like you said, she's watching you. I'm like, and I don't want her to watch me and see me get so frustrated or little things, or something happens, something spills. I'm like, oh, well, let's just clean it up. Like, you know, like, or even she's upset. It's just you yourself have to like, okay, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I think that's what goes through my head a lot. It's going to be okay. It's going to be on repeat in my head.
Yeah.
I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I feel like every phase in her life is a process too. You got to relearn right now. She's in like a sleep regression. So we're relearning.
So that's fun.
So that's fun. She doesn't want to sleep in her crib anymore. She wants to sleep with mommy and daddy. And it's so hard because when she's crying and she's upset, you're like, okay, I need to sleep. At the same time, like, I don't want her to feel not comforted.
Like, you. Yeah.
She needs me. So it's the balance. It's finding balance in everything and finding your balance. Because everybody's balance is different.
Yep.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, so Emmy and Ava, 4-year-old and 2-year-old, right? They just started sleeping in their own room. And so I feel like we've kind of gotten into a new phase of life. And it was really sad at first. Like because they slept in our room for so long. And then when we got them new beds and made it a big deal to get them to their own room. And like, I was emotional. Like I remember setting up their new bed, getting them all their new bedding, and just being sad because it's like, well, we've entered a new phase. And it's weird. It's really weird. So everything is a phase. Yeah. Everything, like you're constantly learning as a mom, and you're going to constantly be going through a new phase with your kids.
I remember when Adeline went from her bassinet to a crib.
Oh, yeah.
I cried.
Yeah.
I that night, I told Brian, I can't do this. I had her bassinet next to me for 6 months.
Yeah.
And Brian said, okay, like let's transition to the crib in the other room. And the whole night, I bawled. And I told Brian, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I'm looking at her on her monitor. I'm like, I have to go in there. Like, and then now she's with me every night. So I got what I asked for. But it's okay. It's a season. It's a phase.
It is. And enjoy it while it lasts.
Yes.
Because it's just that. It's a season. And pretty soon they're going to be in their own rooms. And
But like, what an emotional roller coaster parenthood is, because we need them next to us. We need all that, and the same child that is so clingy right now is one day going to be a teenager and turn around and be embarrassed that we've tagged along to a youth event or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then what are we going to do with our time and ourselves? Like it's very emotional. The whole thing.
Yeah.
I work in addiction treatment, and there's a term that we use that I use in my everyday life with Amelia, and it's roll with resistance. And literally, I just roll with the punches. So that would be like my encouragement is roll with the punches.
Yes.
Set your expectations very low.
Yes.
Yes.
Just roll with it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow.
Yeah.
What about talking about support and friends? What about how can we, I think I've also asked this too, but I think it's important to talk about as a church, because this is loops, and we talk about how this always loops back into the kingdom of God. As moms, what can we do to support each other more?
Oh, I have a good one. Okay. And I say this because I've experienced this a couple times. So my husband is in music ministry, and so a lot of services, I'm just doing it alone, right? Which is great. Love that he's involved. He loves his ministry, and I support that. But sometimes it's hard, like to be in a service and not know what's going on because you're too busy worrying about, your toddlers and your 4-year-old has to go to the bathroom like every 3 seconds, it seems. And the 2-year-old's clingy and you just don't know what's going on. But I specifically remember a couple of times my kids are being crazy, I'm getting frustrated, and somebody just coming up to me and they're like, it's okay. Like, your kids are in church. You may not be getting anything out of the service right now, but your kids are growing up in this and they're going to remember this. So just stay strong. It's going to be fine. You'll eventually be able to sit through a service and know what's going on and enjoy it. And I think that is so important. So if you ever see a mom struggling in church, just give her that encouragement. Or even like out in the lobby. Like, I know I've seen you with your baby girl. So even just other moms, if you see a mom out there, and another mom actually said this to me one time. She was like, you know, my daughters are older and I can enjoy service now. So just, you will get there. You will get there. Just keep that in your head. Like, it's hard right now, but you're eventually going to get to the place where your kids are older and they're involved in the service because they're used to church. They've come to church. They grew up in it. So just encourage other moms. If you see them struggling or out in the lobby and their kids are screaming and throwing a fit, just be like, it's going to be okay. Like, sometimes that's all we need is
Honestly,
like, okay,
yes.
it is going to be fine.
Yes.
That would be mine.
That's great. I love that.
I mean, we were just kind of saying that the other night because JoJo is, you know, filling the service and she has her hands lifted and tears streaming down her face. And the moment she lifts her hands, like, Mia's just grabbing at her.
Yes.
And it's just, you know, it's at sometimes even hard to pray in service. But that is why we've discussed this before. But like, you have to have that relationship on the side too.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, doing dishes, praying, in the shower, praying. You know, like, hey God, this is what's going on. You know. Sorry, we haven't caught up in a while.
Sorry,
Been a little busy.
A little busy.
Yeah, that was a really funny night because I remember, like, it was such a powerful service, and I'm like deep in prayer, like a couple times, and then I'm like, get off.
Yes.
Right now.
Like,
Give it back to right now.
You can go from praying to lecturing your kids in like 2
a
seconds.
split second. Yes.
And that is why we are superheroes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Or you're there and you're praying, and then like Adeline will get really upset and like, okay, well, I gotta go in the lobby now.
Yeah.
I'll finish this later. You know.
Yeah. Well, Ava.
We'll come back to this.
Yeah. Ava's new thing is like, if she sees me crying, she's like, mommy, just like patting at my face, or just like, and I'm like, I'm praying. It's okay. But like, the entire time I'm praying, that's what she's doing. Is patting at my face, like, mommy.
But that's so good that they're watching us.
Yes.
That scene. Adeline she does this thing now where she's walking and she closes her eyes and she goes like that. And I'm like, are you praying, baby? And she's like, she's watching. She's
At 18
watching
months.
At
That's
18 months.
amazing.
I'm like, you're watching. And just knowing that making church and God, praying a priority, they see that.
Right.
They see you doing that, and that's, you know, in itself rewarding, and that in itself will pay off. And just keep coming, it just
Just
come, even if
yes. I'm like,
come, even if you are like, I know it's not, I'm not going to get anything out of this,
but it's still,
but you will.
Yeah. You coming, you bringing your babies, it's worth it. It's
Right.
a blessing.
You can't enjoy the service in its entirety, but you're planting seeds to your little ones. Like, this is what we do. This is what we do. And it's just like drilled into them, and that's all they know. So it is planting seeds.
You develop a mama groove is what, you know, we talk about a lot, a routine, and you instill that into them. And so it's not an option anymore. You know, it's not, I don't want to go. I mean, of course, our kids are all very young, so it will be a really cool episode. Maybe one time we can bring some seasoned mamas on here. But for right now, there's like a groove. You know, you develop your mama routine, and then they just hop on board and you figure it out. Sometimes we're in the lobby the whole time. Sometimes we're not getting anything, and then sometimes it's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Roll with resistance.
Yes. Roll with resistance.
Yes.
Roll with resistance. So, cannot imagine doing motherhood without God.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I think it's important to wrap it up with, no matter what, no matter the anxiety that we go through, the depression, just emotions, just really relying on God to get us through, like you talked about. Really just focusing and trying to remember, even if it's minute by minute, like, okay, God, you got me.
Yeah.
Okay, God, you got me.
Yeah.
So just really focusing on that relationship with God, and then as time comes on, we can and turn around and give back to other moms,
Yes.
you know, what we kind of needed.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for coming on here, and I love the laughs and I love the tears. And we appreciate you as mamas, just working in the ministry of motherhood.
Appreciate you guys too.
Yes.